Hey everyone, and welcome to the Balanced Bodies Blueprint. I am your host, Vinny Russo.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Erin Stansfield.
And we're shifting gears from all the conventional fitness narrative you hear on most fitness podcasts, as our main emphasis lies in preventative healthcare, adopting a holistic approach to nutrition, and challenging the traditional views on various fitness topics.
Our mission with this podcast is to provide you with the information you need to achieve optimal health.
And on today's episode, I am going to be discussing proper nutrition during pregnancy. This is something that I've been doing for a while with clients, and recently it's been picking up. I guess year 2024 and 2025 have been the years of trying to get pregnant. But I've had a bunch of clients over the past year and a half that I coached through pregnancy. And when I first started this, it was like I've done my research on it. Like I know certain calories to hit, what to look for, the nutrients that we need to have, that type of stuff. But I've sort of refined it and just went a lot by feel, by keeping the foundations the same, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go through and I'm really going to explain, what I look for, what I do, that type of stuff. Because when you are pregnant, it's not really eating for two, right? In terms of like doubling your calories. But it does mean that you need to have these extra nutrients and a bit more energy to actually intake, especially in later trimesters. So a balanced, nutrient-dense diet can fuel your baby's development while also helping you manage key health factors like blood pressure, blood sugar, and having the right type of weight gain. So in this episode, I'm going to break down this evidence-based nutrition advice for the entire pregnancy. So through the first trimester, second trimester, and third trimester, I'm going to talk about the recommended weight gain, like what I like to look for, the calories that I like to work with in those trimesters, important vitamins and minerals that you want to really focus on and prioritize, and then any tips to reduce common risks, things like gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, which is really, really important, and even anemia. And during that time, we're going to cover obviously the foods that you want to have, and then some things that you want to avoid during pregnancy. Now, with this advice, you could use it as a guide, but always consult your healthcare provider for personal medical advice. So let's dive in, and let me just give you a quick overview of nutritional needs in weight gain when we're talking about the overall pregnancy. So when we talk about calories, there's going to be a modest increase, and it's not going to happen right away in the first trimester. You're not really going to need it then, but it will happen gradually later on. And when you think about the first trimester, not so much need to increase really, can stay at maintenance. What I like to do is I like to go a little bit above maintenance, and it's only when you really get into that second trimester is when we start adding calories. And I look to go around 300 to 400 extra calories per day. And I'll stay there, and then I adjust that based off of what we're seeing in terms of your biometric and in terms of your biometric data and your biofeedback data. And then when we get into the third trimester, I like to kick it up just a little bit, maybe to like 400 to 500 calories per day. And I like to kind of sit there and once again, monitor. So adjustments will always be based off of what the data is telling me, as well as any advice from your OBGYN. If they tell you, hey, you need to gain some weight, or wow, you're gaining way ahead of schedule, I will make adjustments based off of that as well. So it's really important during pregnancy and I try to preach this with the women that I've coached, to listen to your body's hunger cues, right? And then we're going to monitor your weight trend, and we don't want to try to force a specific number of calories. Instead, we want to just listen to our bodies, kind of see where our weight's going, that type of stuff, and then adjust the intake based on that feedback. And obviously, like I just said, your doctor's feedback. So when we talk about what to look for in terms of weight gain, I feel like weight gain can be one of the best indicators that we're eating the right amount. But it's like, well, then Vin, how much should I gain? And this is where research kind of comes in. And I I don't set this in stone, but I like to use it as like a guide to reference off of. So when we're talking about like BMI, if you're in the normal weight category, you're looking at like around like maybe a pound, maybe a little bit below a pound per week in the second and third trimester. So that's normally going to add up from anywhere to 25 to 35 pounds overall. If you're underweight, you're looking for a little bit more than a pound. So a pound at a minimum, but a little bit more than that, obviously happening in that second and third trimester. And that should add up to, roughly anywhere from like 30 to 40 pounds for the entire pregnancy. If you happen to be overweight or even obese, this is where we're going to aim for less than a pound per week. If you're overweight, you're looking, maybe half a pound to 3/4 of a pound. If you're considered pretty obese, then you want to even go maybe half a pound, maybe a tiny bit below that. Nothing too crazy, but we're looking anywhere between both of those at like maybe 15 to 25 or like 10 to 20, depending on where you currently sit. So why is that important? Well, gaining the right amount helps make sure that we know that our baby is going to grow well without causing excessive maternal weight, right? Because having excessive maternal weight raises risks, which is why if you're already overweight or obese, we don't have you trying to gain the same amount of pounds as someone who's at normal weight. So if you're not gaining weight, then how can that affect the baby? Well, it could lead to a small baby, or it could lead to preterm birth. While if you go in the opposite end, if you have excessive weight gain, that could be linked to complications like gestational diabetes, high blood pressure, maybe even large birth weight. And one of the things that gets pretty overlooked is delivery difficulties. So having trouble actually delivering the baby. So the way you want to look at it when you're thinking about eating food is see yourself as like a nutrient funnel. The baby's going to take what it needs. So you just need to keep refilling that funnel. And if you don't happen to get enough of those calories or of the protein or even nutrients like calcium, the baby's going to draw it from your body stores, which could actually leave you deficient and put you in a worse spot. So thing is like you have to make sure that although you're going to get these urges and you want to gain some weight, we have to make sure that we are fueling our body properly throughout this, not just for the sake of yourself, but also for the health of the baby that's growing inside you. Okay. I also think that it's important to understand patterns of weight gain. So it's not going to be linear, and you need to get that in your head. Like it's not, right? There's going to be different rates at different stages. Like I mentioned, the first trimester, you're going to gain a little bit. You might not even gain anything at all. And sometimes you might lose weight because you have food aversions or you're dealing with nausea, and that could limit that, right? What you actually eat. By the second trimester, that's when weight gain will pick up a little bit because the baby's growing, your placenta's growing, your appetite usually improves, nausea usually goes down, so you're actually eating more, and that's where we see that rate of gain from, from maybe like 3/4 of a pound to a pound per week. When we get into that third trimester, it's basically going to be pretty similar, right? And the problem with that, though, is that in the third trimester, you get thrown like a curveball. Sometimes you'll notice that the weight gain actually plateaus and it stalls. And that's not uncommon at all. You have to understand that your body is shedding some amniotic fluid. You have more urination, so you're losing water weight. And even sometimes your appetite might decline, or at least the feeding volume declines because your abdomen is crowded. My wife, Dr. Erin, she in her last trimester barely ate. She would be really hungry. She'd sit down to eat, have a few bites, and be like, I'm stuffed. And I'm like, what? How are you stuffed? Like, you're just talking about how hungry you were. And she has a short torso. And Eva, our beautiful baby girl, she was big. She was big inside her. So it crowded that area and actually made her feel really full. So let's get into trimester by trimester. And I want to give you Some important notes for each one that you could write down. You could use this as a guide. Like I said, it's not written in stone. This is sort of what I look for and what I do as I coach women through their pregnancy. So in the first trimester, like I mentioned earlier, your energy needs, they don't really need to increase that much. Most women don't need to eat extra calories for the first 12 weeks. It's common if you gain only a few pounds or no weight at all, because once again, you don't really need to. And plus the baby's so small that you're probably not going to gain any weight there. But the priority of the first trimester is going to be quality of diet over quantity, right? I'll say that again, quality of your diet. So you want to eat nutrient-dense foods, the ones that you can actually handle. I remember working with one client, and she loved, like when we were in diet phases, her favorite protein to eat was chicken. She got pregnant. Her least favorite thing to eat was chicken. Right? She couldn't handle it. It made her sick. So we didn't do that. So we didn't stay with it. So we found another nutrient-dense option to have for protein. All right. And that's okay. So you got to like adjust based off of what your body's telling you. Just understand that the baby is about like the size of a peach when it gets to week 12. So we're not going to see crazy amounts of weight gain or weight loss. So I'm just listening to hear if I hear my baby crying. She's asleep right now. All right. When we talk about this first trimester, we will have some people deal with morning sickness. They get very nauseous. They could actually vomit. They have a ton of food aversions, and this is mainly due to the hormonal changes that the body's going through, and it happens around week 6 through 12. Some tips that I could give to cope with it that, look, I didn't experience it, right? I can't tell you from experiences this is what I did, but I could tell you that from what the research says, this is what they tell you. You try to eat smaller, more frequent snacks. If you do this with, like, if your stomach's empty, it might worsen the nausea. So you want to just try to keep it full, or at least filled with a little bit of food throughout the day. So that's why you go with small, more frequent snacks. Bland foods like crackers and toast might help. I know that was one of the things that Erin went to when she started getting a little bit of nausea, was she would do toast with butter, and it worked. When we talk about other things like other snacks, you could think about like protein-rich snacks, just to really, really prioritize the nutrients that you're feeling in your body. Staying hydrated is also going to be crucial. So sip water throughout the day. One of my favorite things to do to tell women is try to have meals with broth in it, right? Try to do that because it'll help make you stay hydrated, especially if you're vomiting, and that's the last thing we want is you to get dehydrated. But if stuff gets severe, then obviously seek medical advice. You may need a type of medication, or you might even need IV fluids. So just pay attention and don't think that like because you're sick and you're throwing up a lot, like you can't reach out for help because you're stronger than that. No, if you feel it's pretty bad, reach out for help, please. So then this leads into the key nutrients in the first trimester. And I feel like one is the superstar, and it's folic acid. And look, if you're trying to get pregnant and you know you're trying to do this and you can start taking folate before conception, and then you still have that, you have some stores lined up in you for the first few weeks, that's really going to be significant in helping prevent neural tube deficiency. The neural tube, which becomes the brain and spinal cord, closes at about week 6. So folic acid is going to be very, very crucial very early on. But because it's hard to get folic acid from food alone, women are advised to take a prenatal vitamin with at least 400 micrograms of folic acid. Foods rich in folate include things like leafy greens. Beans are great in them, lentils, oranges, and even fortified grains because they get that stuff added in there. And you want to include these as much as possible while not skipping your prenatal vitamin, okay? It's just extremely important. Take that extra step. This is one of those things where you want to take that extra step. Now, there is something that's going around, and you could thank stupid Gary Brecka and Kim Kardashian for perpetuating this, and that is substituting folic acid for methylfolate. Methylfolate is not a safe substitute for folic acid, okay? And the reason why is because it doesn't give your body all of the building materials it needs for your baby's brain and spine development. So If you skip folic acid by taking methylfolate, you're taking a risk with no proven benefit. When you take folic acid, your body turns it into several different types of folate, and each one has its own role. One will help make DNA, which is needed for new cells in your growing baby, obviously, and another type helps with methylation, which switches certain genes on and off correctly. Methylfolate skips the first step. It doesn't have the kind that actually helps make DNA, and only gives you that one type of folate that deals with methylation. So it doesn't fully cover the DNA building role, which is absolutely crucial in the first weeks of pregnancy when the baby's brain and spine are forming. So do not substitute methylfolate for folic acid. The next vitamin that you want to make sure that we are prioritizing in the first trimester is going to be B6. And this is needed for protein metabolism as well as new red blood cells. Most prenatals will cover the amount, but just in case, some foods would be like bananas, chicken, whole grains, that type of stuff. And that will help support the amount of vitamin B6 that you need. Next one is a big one, and it's iron. And your iron requirement is going to jump during pregnancy. And that's the reason why, is because you're building up your blood supply and you're also building up your baby's blood supply. So in the first trimester, the demand for iron isn't crazy high, but it's good to start building your iron stores early, because iron is going to support the formation of the placenta. It's going to help these red blood cells carry oxygen to your baby. So easiest thing to do is to include iron-rich foods like lean red meat, poultry, fish, beans, lentils, spinach is a good one, and even fortified cereals. The cool thing with this, though, is like if you pair those plant-based, the iron that's plant-based, like from spinach or from lentils or from beans, if you pair that with citrus fruit foods like oranges or strawberries, it will enhance the absorption of the iron. So make sure you take citrus foods when you are taking an iron supplement or eating iron foods, because it will help enhance the absorption. Most prenatal vitamins will have the recommended amount, and that's mainly used to help prevent anemia. But look, your doctor's going to check your blood for anemia during pregnancy, and if you're low, they're going to recommend extra iron supplements. So the main critical ones here that we really want to focus on in this first trimester is going to be folate and iron. But you'll want to get a broad balance of vitamins from your food. So by eating a variety of healthy foods and also using that prenatal vitamin, you should cover all the bases. So that was the first trimester. Let's go into the second trimester, which is from weeks 13 to 27. And this is where we are going to focus on the growth spurt, right? So what we need for that is we need an increase in calories and we need an increase in key nutrients. So by the time the second trimester comes around, many women will feel a bump up in appetite as the baby's growth accelerates. And this is the time you really want to nutrient up, right? You want to nutrient up your diet to meet the demands of you and your growing fetus. So when it comes to calories, remember what I said earlier, you want to add some calories, maybe around 300 to 400 calories per day is what I usually do. But that's not like giving you a license to binge on anything that you want. All right, those extra calories should come from nutrient-dense sources that provide protein, that provide vitamins, that provide minerals, along with the energy you need to support the growth of a baby. And an easy way to do this is by adding in 2 to 3 small snacks during the day, right? So if you have, let's just say, 3 meals, you've been eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe you have 1 snack. Add 2 more snacks in that day, right? And that should help you bump up to that 300 to 400 calories. Some good snack ideas would be like a piece of fruit with nut butter, cheese and whole grain crackers, trail mix, hummus and veggies. My thing, honestly, a protein shake. It's just easy to get down, and it has the vitamins and minerals and the protein amount that you need there. Or even making like a fruit smoothie with yogurt, right? All of these will help you reach those extra calories and nutrition without excessive empty calories, for example. Now, to touch just a little bit on protein, your protein needs will increase to support the growth of the fetal tissue, okay? And the best way to make sure that you're eating enough protein, what I like to tell my clients, is just make sure that every time you feed yourself, whether it's a snack or a meal, you have protein with that meal. Some sources of protein that, you know, if you're looking for different sources, you got lean meats, you got poultry, you got fish, eggs, you could do dairy, beans, lentils. You can even go soy products if you want. If you're a vegetarian, I would use a plant-based protein supplement to make sure that we're getting that in there. Next would be looking at carbohydrates and fiber. Carbs are going to be your main source of energy. It's also very crucial for fetal growth. The baby's brain, you got to understand, uses glucose as fuel. So you want to make sure we're having these carbohydrates. But we want to focus on something that we call smart carbohydrates, which other people refer to them as complex carbohydrates. They break down slower. They don't have crazy rises and drops in blood sugar. But make this the priority. You don't have to nix the other carbohydrates that, you know, rise blood sugar pretty quickly, but you want to make this the priority. So whole grains, starchy vegetables, fruits, legumes, those things instead of like refined sugars. All right. So when you think about healthy carbohydrates, and for lack of a better term, you're thinking like brown rice, right? You're thinking whole wheat bread. You're thinking quinoa. You're thinking about potatoes, that stuff. And those also include fiber, right? So smart carbohydrates will have fiber with them. The recommended dose is around 28 grams of fiber per day, and that will help support digestion and also prevent constipation. And that constipation usually starts in that second trimester as the hormones slow your gut motility down. So high fiber foods like vegetables, fruit, make sure we keep the skin, whole grains, beans, lentils, nuts, those types of things, they're going to help with all that. Okay, they're also going to help moderate your blood sugar, which is very, very important as your body's insulin resistance naturally increases mid-pregnancy, which can eventually, if you're focusing on your fiber, that can reduce the risk of gestational diabetes. If you're genetically predisposed, it's going to be something that you have to deal with, but you could take every measure possible to help reduce the risks. And one way to help reduce the risks would be to spread out your carbohydrate intake, right? So have smaller, more balanced meals. Avoid excessive sugary foods or drinks. Like, don't drink sugary drinks. Like, you don't need to. That's just an easy way to add calories without actually filling you up. And you want to favor low glycemic index carbs. I'm not a huge fan of doing this like when we're dieting, but low glycemic index carbs like oats, sweet potatoes, and beans can help with this. And then this leads into the nutrients for the second trimester. Iron, like we said earlier, that's still going to be big, especially now that your blood volume is increasing, which is trying to supply the placenta. Without enough iron, you can develop iron deficiency anemia, which will cause you to feel fatigued and can actually affect the oxygen delivery to the baby. So a lot of women become slightly anemic mid-pregnancy if they're not diligent with iron. So you want to focus on those iron-rich foods, continue your daily vitamin, and remember, combine those iron-rich foods with citrus foods. Like, make sure you're eating them like in the same meal to help boost that absorption. Calcium is another big one here. This is where the baby skeleton starts to harden, especially at the end of the second trimester and into the third. So if you don't get enough calcium, the baby will actually draw calcium from your own bones. So the goal is to hit around like 1,000 milligrams of calcium per day. And some good sources would be like dairy products, fortified plant milks, like almond milk has more calcium actually than regular milk. You just got to shake it up because it usually sits at the bottom. Orange juice can have it, even though I'm like, hey, kind of stay away from the sugary drinks. Can have it there. Tofu made with calcium sulfate is another one. Leafy greens like kale and broccoli are good. Almonds. One that's overlooked is canned fish with bones. So if you're looking at like sardines or even salmon in there, that would be another good choice. The prenatal vitamins, they don't contain full calcium amounts because if they did, honestly, the pills would be way too big to swallow. So you can't do that. So diet is really key there. And adequate calcium is not only going to help build your baby's bones and even teeth, but some emerging evidence is showing that it might help reduce the risk of preeclampsia, which is high blood pressure in pregnancy. So getting your calcium through foods and supplements if needed in this second trimester benefits both the baby's bones and might also help you keep your blood pressure normal. I will say this too. Try to take your calcium supplement away from your iron supplement, as they will interfere with the absorption. Okay, so I also think that's another reason why there's probably not that much calcium in the prenatal vitamin 2. Another one is vitamin D. So vitamin D works hand in hand with calcium for bone health. We know this. But when you have low vitamin D status, that's been associated, at least the research shows, that it's been associated with the increased risk of complications like gestational diabetes or like preeclampsia. So best thing to do, get some safe sun exposure, right? Your skin makes vitamin D, so get outside, get some safe sun exposure. And you can also include foods. TV just turned on. You could also include foods like fatty fish, salmon, sardines, milk, egg yolks, and even fortified cereals. The next nutrient, which I feel is one of the most important nutrients to take, is going to be your omega-3s with prioritizing DHA. This is where, in the second trimester, where the baby's brain and eyes start rapidly developing. And these omega-3 fatty acids, it's called DHA, is a crucial structural component of fetal brain and retinal tissue. So omega-3 fats, particularly DHA and EPA, have been linked to better neural development and even higher cognitive scores in children whose mother had ample amounts during pregnancy. The main source of this is going to be fish. So this is a great time to ensure that you're eating 2 to 3 servings of low mercury fish per week. But I think taking a supplement will definitely help here, especially if you're not a fan of fish, because I know a lot of people aren't. Good choices in terms of fish. You're looking at salmon, sardines, trout, herring, anchovies, cod, tilapia, shrimp. These are all going to be high in omega-3 and pretty low in mercury. If you're like, hey, I don't want to eat fish, that's okay. And you're like, well, I don't really take supplements. Get them from plant-based stuff. All right, so flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, they all have a plant-based omega-3 called ALA, which can convert, but it's a little limited to DHA. So if you're like, hey, I don't really like supplements, that would be your next best option. But if you're like, hey, I don't like fish, but I don't mind taking supplements, consider fish oil or even algae-based DHA as a supplement. And then, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, always try to avoid high mercury fish like shark. Swordfish is one. Not a huge fan of tilefish, but that's one as well. Mackerel, and then albacore tuna, you want to just limit, okay? Because if you take in mercury, it'll bioaccumulate, and then it can harm the fetus's development of its nervous system. So we want to make sure we take away that risk by just avoiding those foods. And then choline as well is another unsung hero here. And it's very, very important in the second and third trimester for the baby's brain development and actually having that neural tube closure. So that's alongside of folic acid, like we mentioned. The recommended dose is about 450 milligrams of choline per day. It's not included in your prenatal vitamins, so you have to get it from foods. And some great sources are really going to be eggs. Like one egg has about 150 milligrams of choline. So eggs are going to be my number one choice to go to. Eat them any way you want, hard-boiled, scrambled, easy, over easy, whatever it is. Lean meats, poultry, fish, dairy, and even soybeans. So my thing is, like, if you eat 1 to 2 eggs daily and you have a variety of other foods like milk and chicken and even some legumes, you're going to hit your target. When we're looking at weight gain here and monitoring to weight gain, this is where we jump up to that pound per week, and that's just like a good pace. And it's really like, you don't want to like count calories here. You just really want to rigidly track your biometrics and your biofeedback to guide you. So tracking your weight trends, tracking your energy levels, how satiated you feel, that type of stuff. If you're losing weight or you're constantly feeling fatigued or hungry, you most likely need to eat more. Now, if you're gaining weight and it's too rapidly or you feel overly full, then you want to scale back a little bit. But every woman's metabolism is going to respond differently. So the goal here is going to be a gradual, healthy weight gain. Okay. Once again, looking for that pound per week. Staying active is huge here. regular exercise, as long as it's okay with your doctors, can help improve circulation and help reduce the risk of gestational diabetes. So even if you go with the walking, or you try to do some yoga 30 minutes a day, that can make a huge difference, not only in like appetite regulation and circulation, but also your mood. And then you pair that with good nutrition. And this is going to be ideal for your health in particular. I normally have clients do 1 power walk per day. And that's like for everybody. When I have women who become pregnant or want me to coach them through their pregnancy, we start with that, but we then include that more as their regular workout routine decreases. And then it's like, all right, well, look, we can't really get the workouts in that we want to get in. Maybe you just feel you don't feel good, or maybe it's just too difficult, or maybe you're just too tired. So we just ramp up the amount of power walks you do just to keep the body moving. And that's one thing that I love to do with my clients. And it's also a stress reliever. So you could do a lot of stress techniques when you go out for a walk. Some common issues that you're going to realize, or that you might face in the second trimester as your belly grows, is you might get some heartburn, you might get some constipation. You're definitely going to get some appetite swings in there. And then one thing that I've noticed, I'm not sure if this is legitimate or not, but I've noticed some cramping, especially in the legs. So if that happens, what I would say is start to focus on magnesium and to go with the magnesium-rich foods like nuts, seeds, beans, and stuff like that, while also obviously maintaining your calcium intake and staying hydrated, right? Like there is, I say magnesium because it's overlooked. You could obviously throw potassium in there, make sure you have a banana a day, or, have some sodium, make sure you're just salting all your foods that when you eat them. Those are easy, but I feel like magnesium gets overlooked. So that's why I say let's concentrate on magnesium. But by the end of the second trimester, your baby, it's growing fast, right? It's growing fast, about 2 pounds by, I believe, about 2 pounds by 27 weeks. And you're likely feeling a little bit better than the first trimester as your body starts to normalize a little bit. So this is a great phase to help solidify your healthy habits before the intensity of the third trimester arrives, which is what we're diving into now. So this is weeks 28 through 40, and this is the final stretch. And this is where I'm like, let's really focus on those nutrients, all right? Because this is where we get that explosive growth in your child. We're going to have some rapid weight gain. And you're growing from, 2.5 pounds at like week 28 to 7 to 8 pounds plus by term. So you got to understand their brain, their lungs, and body fat, it's all maturing there within you. So you have to obviously prepare that, and you got to prepare your body for labor and prepare your body to start breastfeeding. So good nutrition remains critical here. And you're going to get some challenges, and we'll talk about those in a second. But when we talk about your calorie needs, remember from the beginning, I said you're probably going to jump up to about 400 to 500 calories per day. That's usually where I go. Everyone's going to be different. So that's just like a reference to work off of. Some women will find that their appetite increases, and others experience the complete opposite, where they feel full fast because the baby's squishing their stomach. Like I mentioned with my wife with her small torso, that's kind of what happened with her. So the key, if that does start to happen to you, is to continue eating frequent, smaller, nutrient-dense meals and snacks, so we still provide the body with nutrients that it needs. You're not going to want to do it, but you have to tell yourself you have to prioritize it. And it's not eating to the point of getting sick or getting nauseous. It's like little snacks throughout the day. If you're eating 7 snack-sized meals throughout the day, so be it. Like every few hours you're just eating something, so be it. It's okay, right? Trust your body here. Some days you're going to be hungrier than others, where, baby's growth spurt might make you a little bit ravenous. And on those days, maybe you're like, hey, maybe I need to eat a little bit more. And then on other days, you might get full really, really quickly. So you're like, I can't really eat everything, so let me focus on those smaller portions. But I'm going to eat more often throughout the day. And then biofeedback here is going to be really important. You want to monitor roughly, obviously where you are in terms of weight gain, But your biofeedback is the most important, because you don't want to force feed until you feel uncomfortable. I know I just mentioned, like, even like if you're like, oh, I really don't want to eat, it's not forcing yourself to eat to where you're uncomfortable. It's just like reminding yourself that you have to get some food in because the baby needs nutrients, right? It's not about you right now. It's about the baby. As selfless as that sounds, and as altruistic as that sounds, it's the truth, right? Just look at what you allow your body to go through for that baby. You might as well throw those little extra nutrients in there when you're not feeling like eating. When we look at the expected weight gain, it should be about, once again, a pound per week. But if you start getting that point where like you get full really quickly, it should drop or slow down. And even some people lose some pounds a week or two before labor. And this could be due to, shedding water weight, increased metabolism. Like I said, a slight drop in your appetite because you can't finish your foods. But as long as your healthcare provider says, the baby's growth is on track, a plateau in weight at the end is usually no cause for concern at all. The macronutrients that you want to really focus on here is adequate protein, ample amounts of those smart carbohydrates, and obviously we always say like healthy fats, but just think mindful here, right? Think about fueling your body with what it needs to support the baby's growth, and also don't shy away from indulgences. If you feel like you want to go and get Wendy's, by all means, go and get Wendy's. You want to have ice cream, go get ice cream, especially if you find like you're not eating a lot or like you're getting full quickly. Throwing those little extra calories in there via some low nutrient dense, highly palatable, highly caloric meals every once in a while, it's not going to hurt anybody. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt the baby. If anyway, it's a way to say, hey, I was really behind the last day or so in calories because I wasn't hungry. Let me throw, some ice cream in there. Let me get some calories up. But really focus on obviously the omegas, right? The DHA, because we want the baby's brain to develop as efficiently as possible, and that goes the same thing with choline as well. Hydration is going to be important here because your blood volume peaks in late pregnancy, and dehydration can actually contribute to something called Braxton Hicks contractions, or it can actually even trigger preterm contractions. So just make sure you're drinking plenty of fluids. The recommended thing is like 8 to 12 cups of water. I'm like, just keep drinking, keep reminding yourself to drink every so often. If you forget, it's all right. Chug down a cup, like you'll be fine. And also don't shy away from other hydrating fluids as well. One of my biggest tips is like carry a water bottle with you and sip it often. If nighttime bathroom trips, they become a bother to you, this is very common. I've seen this probably with every one of my clients where they're like, I'm getting up and peeing all the time. In this last trimester, we try to stop the drinking. We try to not stop it, but taper it off near the evening, right? So you're getting the bulk of it during the day. You're peeing a lot during the day. You start to taper it off, and that peeing starts to stop a little bit. But you're staying hydrated because you're loading up during the day. And also, and I didn't touch on this, but staying hydrated will help with edema, right? So that's the swelling, because it keeps the blood volume adequate. So make sure that we are staying hydrated. Oh, and another thing. I can't believe I forgot this too. It helps with constipation. So it helps prevent constipation. So make sure we're staying hydrated with that too. So you have multiple reasons why you need to stay hydrated. So carry a water bottle with you and sip it. That's it. Like sip it throughout the entire day. When we talk about micronutrients, all the vitamins and minerals here that we discussed earlier, and like if you just think about vitamins and minerals in general, you want to just have, right? Just fruits and vegetables. Load up on them, right? Just make sure you're eating your fruits and vegetables. They'll have the iron, they'll have the calcium, they'll have the magnesium, they'll have the potassium, DHA, the choline, vitamin K, all of that stuff, and continue your prenatal vitamin. So load up on fruits and vegetables, stay hydrated, have protein with every meal, continue your prenatal vitamin, and you should be just fine. Some issues that you might deal with in the third trimester, once again, heartburn or reflux. You might deal with some constipation. You might have that swelling come in and that edema, and you might also experience gestational diabetes, where, once again, if this starts to happen, you want to spread your carbohydrates over smaller meals and focus really on those carbohydrates with fiber, those smart carbs like whole grains, vegetables, legumes, that type of stuff, and control your sweets. Not that you can't have them, but just try to control them. And another one that you might experience is the high blood pressure or the preeclampsia. And this is a very serious condition. So the baby is up and she is in her little walker right now. So you might hear her in the background. There you go. So we were talking about preeclampsia. I don't remember what I was really saying, but just know that it can happen and it is a very serious condition. And you might have some factors like genetics or even placenta function that are outside of your control, right? You could still focus on good nutrition to help mitigate that risk, right? So some things you could do is avoid excessive weight gain, make sure we have that adequate amount of calcium and vitamin D. Don't overly restrict salt. So moderate salt intake is fine. And once again, that's providing you with an electrolyte to help you stay hydrated and also stay hydrated. And avoid caffeine, right? Caffeine's a big one. You'll be told that from the get-go to avoid caffeine. So when we look at the third trimester as a whole, we could see that the nutrition is really about keeping that momentum going, maintaining those good habits from the ones that you initially really focused on in the second trimester, and then fine-tuning portion sizes due to spatial limitations in your abdomen. And then you address any complications with specific dietary strategies as well as with advice from your physician. All right, and then the last thing I want to talk about, as this podcast is getting pretty lengthy, is going to be foods and substances to limit or to actually avoid. This is a crucial aspect of pregnancy nutrition here. It's about safety. It's about protecting your baby from potential toxins or infections. And I want to go over some things that I would recommend not to consume, or at least consume in moderation. So when we talk about alcohol, you want to avoid it completely. No amount of alcohol is proven safe in pregnancy. I don't care what anyone says. So if you can avoid it at all costs. And if you can't, I don't know why. But even moderate drinking, like one drink a day, can cause fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. So, or even long-term problems for that baby. So just avoid it, right? Just think about the health of your child when you want to really have a drink, right? Caffeine, I would say avoid, but the recommendations is to limit. And I know how hard it is to avoid caffeine. Trust me. I've seen it with my wife, but she went out and did it anyway. But she did do the recommended low dose of 200 milligrams when she needed it. And she mainly did that through taking a caffeine pill, which was 400 milligrams, that she would split it in half or split it even lower than half and take the smaller dose. High caffeine can be linked to miscarriages and even low birth weight. So the whole thing is like, hey, let's mitigate all risk and let's go with the lowest amount possible. And you're going to get headaches, especially if you're used to caffeine like I am. You're going to get headaches. You're going to feel like shit. You're going to be tired and you're going to want that boost. So that's why they recommend that 200 milligrams. But what you can do, and this is something that I would have done if I went through this, is I would have tried to mix like caffeine. I would have tried mixing decaf with regular to cut down the amount of caffeine I was taking in, but still get that like feel of drinking coffee in the morning, or still getting that psychological trick of like, I am giving my body caffeine, wake up, right? So caffeine is limited. Next one would be certain fish that are high in mercury. Just avoid completely. I wouldn't even do it. I wouldn't even touch it just in case. It's just, I mean, I touched on it before, but it just makes sense. Like, you don't have to eat shark and swordfish. If anything, and you like tuna fish, just limit the amount of tuna that you have to about 6 ounces per week, which isn't a lot, but it's more than sufficient enough. And then other fish that are low in mercury, especially those fattier fish like salmon, they're encouraged, right? Because we want to think about those omegas it provides. When we look at animal foods, anything that's raw or undercooked, completely avoid. We don't want any foodborne illnesses affecting us. You don't want to do raw seafood or shellfish, no raw eggs, no raw sprouts, Deli meats and hot dogs, stay away from. Don't need it. And then I don't care who promotes, if it's RFK promoting this in your face and drinking raw unpasteurized milk, do not drink anything unpasteurized. No unpasteurized dairy, no unpasteurized juices. Do not risk the health of your child by drinking unpasteurized milk. When we talk about high sugar junk foods, we don't want to avoid them completely. We just want to limit them. Remember, you got to think of prioritizing your health and the health of your baby here. Excessive sodium is another one. So don't overly salt your foods. Just stick with the moderate amount. Having it for flavor is fine. You want to stick with those iodine fortified salts because it provides iodine, which is good for thyroid health. So you want to make sure we do that, and make sure you do not consume too much unwashed produce. So always wash your fruits and vegetables, and just make sure that we're trying to remove that soil or any potential harmful bacteria or even pesticides on the food that you're about to eat. So bringing this to a close, eating well during pregnancy is going to be one of the best gifts you could give your baby and yourself. It sets the stage for healthy fetal growth and can reduce the risk of complications. And honestly, it preps your body for the marathon of labor and demands of new motherhood, right? So you're doing everybody justification here, right? There is no dereliction of duty here. You are taking care of what you need to take care of with your baby and yourself. Hopefully with this information in this episode, I at least equipped you with some of the validated nutritional recommendations to navigate your own pregnancy. Now, if you have specific concerns or circumstances, like pre-existing conditions or dietary restrictions, things like that, work closely with your healthcare provider and even possibly a dietitian, a nutritionist, a coach to help customize the general advice to your needs. And to be honest with you, you're going to have these people and they might provide personalized targets and monitor your nutrient status as needed, like I did with my clients. Now, you don't have to hire me to do this. I just have a pretty good track record with it. But I would say having someone in your corner that you could, fall back on to help guide you through this process, especially when you fall off, to get you back on track, is going to be key to your success and to your baby's overall health through their pregnancy. So on behalf of Balanced Bodies, we just want to say thank you for joining us on this episode of the Balanced Bodies Blueprint.
We are committed to bringing valuable content. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment and like it and leave a 5-star review.
On Apple, just go to the show, scroll down to the bottom and rate it there. If you're on Spotify, go to the show's page, click the 3 dots, and you can rate it there as well.
And if you believe in the power of knowledge, share this episode on your social media to try and get the information out there to as many people as possible.
And as you navigate your own path towards better health, remember that Balanced Bodies is forever in your corner. See you all next week.
The podcast content may include discussions of medical topics and health-related information. However, the information provided should not be considered exhaustive or complete, and it should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment.